Hey guys, MooJK here. It's been a little bit, and it's because I've been sick, and I hope that I can power through this video just fine, but I really needed to talk about this upcoming banner. It's very interesting stuff, I think, so let's get right to it. So instead of the Tactics banner, which everybody was kind of expecting with Orlando and all that, we're getting a global exclusive event and banner instead, which is okay because these are very interesting changes that they've made and new developments, so I'm looking forward to it. The grand prize of the banner is going to be a physical damage dealer named Yoon, and he's base 5-star. Unfortunately, goes to 6 stars, but a lot of people will probably be pulling for him because he's pretty unique. I don't think he's going to be necessarily Orlando level, obviously, but there are ways that people are thinking that they can build him up to be just a monster, and we'll get into some of the more of the details in a bit. But as you can see, he has high attack and pretty good stats overall. I mean, nothing really super special, I guess, but he has a nice Trustmaster reward, which is a light armor, which is very important to note. 52 defense, 5 resist, 25%, and it boosts attack when equipped with a fist. So this is basically going to be our ideal build for him. You're going to want to get up his Trustmaster reward. Then you're going to want to equip him with him at least one fist. Excuse me. And that's going to give you an extra 30% when he equips that. So he can be pretty beastly when he has all this stuff on. The next character is going to be Ling. She's a dancer, and this is probably one of the more unique characters we've had in the game. And one of the reasons why I was dreading doing these reviews, because I could end up just falling on my face and sounding like an idiot a week from now when people kind of figure out how to use these characters and things, but gonna give it my best shot anyway. One thing I do need to note is that her stats are pretty poor. Her MP is really high, but her HP is like 5-star level basically. She's really squishy, so but she does have ways to kind of counterbalance against that, which we'll get into in a little bit. Her Trustmaster reward is going to be pretty much the only good dagger in the game right now. 85 attack, which is way better than the next best option, which I believe is the kitchen knife. And it gives a 30% chance of inflicting poison and paralysis. And you're going to want to farm that up as well if you're going to really kind of commit to using Ling in your party. And last but not least, we have kind of an old unit that we've had since launch, I believe. Base 3-star that is now going up to 6 stars, only in global. She does not have a 6-star in Japan. And a lot of people were worried that she was going to be kind of a Medius 2.0. When they announced her getting a 6 stars, it's like, oh great, she's going to probably suck like crap. But it turns out that she's actually pretty decent. Although she's not as good as this 262 attack would, indicate. That's actually pretty misleading, and we'll get into why. But it basically comes down to them including the passive bonus for not having any equipment on or not having any weapons on. So a little misleading here, but yeah, we'll get into that. Her Trustmaster reward, I think, is going to become very important now. It was already a really good fist, the best fist that we have, 101 and Wind Elemental. But now, with the fact that people are going to be trying to get this guy, Yoon, to be really powerful, especially the whales out there, they're going to definitely be farming up at least one pair of Kaiser Knuckles for him. So pretty important Trustmaster reward. I know in the future people like it for characters like Furion as well. It's kind of like a nice way to have elemental chaining and things like that. So yeah, we'll get all into that in just a little bit. Alright, so starting with Yun, or Yoon, I don't know how to pronounce it. He is a physical damage dealer, and he's going to be pretty unique, but in some ways you should temper your expectations unless you are a whale and you have a lot of TMs, or you have a lot of ability to farm TMs really quickly. So his base attack is 150, which is really high. He's pretty much on par with Noctis there. HP is okay. Everything else is just kind of, not that special. He does have innate 30% fire resistance, which is nice and could come in handy in some bosses. Now, kind of a running theme with this banner is that the equipment selection, or at least the weapon selection, is going to be pretty weird and poor. He can only equip daggers, whips, maces, and fists. So right now, if you're a free-to-play player, Your best bet's going to be the whip that's coming up in the event, and also the Thorn Mace from the Antinola trial. Those will be pretty good options for him, but you know, as far as fists go, we have nothing good in global, and you're going to have to pretty much farm up Xiao's TM if you're going to really make use of him seriously. Not going to go skill by skill. They're pretty self-explanatory. He has a lot of monk type of abilities. He does get a 50% increase when equipped with close or light armor, so obviously you want to do that. That's a really big increase, already on top of his good base attack. He has a decent AoE here, unless you're running up against fire-resistant enemies. And good HP, good defense buffs here. Now, Angry Peck is a pretty cool skill. It's only 16 MP, but you're getting pretty good damage out of it. I think it's like a 2.67, 2.7-ish damage. So that's really good for 16 MP, very MP efficient. I'm not really a big fan of these increased power for the next normal attack things, because unless you're really needing the resistance, I mean, I'd much rather be just spamming his best abilities every turn, but I can see some uses for this, like if, you know, for one turn you don't want to hit the boss for whatever reason, you don't want to get countered or whatever, you can power up and hit him hard next turn instead. There's things like that, but for the most part, I don't really understand, you know, what the big deal about these kinds of things are. He does have resistance to some of these things, which is not a big deal. I wish he was resistant to blind and stone, but you can't have everything, I guess. He gets an additional attack plus 30%, so that's already an innate 80% attack boost, which is really high. Plus, if you have his TM and you equip a fist, you're getting a 110% attack. So you can see that he has really good potential if you're able to farm the appropriate TMs. He also has increased critical rate, which is going to make his DPS even higher. So, you know, he really does have a lot of potential here. Raging Chocobo, I mean, it's not really that much better than Angry Peck, so I'm not really sure why you'd want to use... I mean, I guess, you know, when MP is not an issue, you want to use a slightly stronger one, but Angry Peck is almost just as good. Again, one of these increased power type of things where you can charge up. I mean, plus 4x, I mean, that is a big deal, so I can see, you know, some of the appeal here, but I wish you could increase power of, you know, like your whole skill instead of just a normal attack, but I guess that would be OP. And then finally, his signature move, Blazing Combo, which is fire physical damage 1.8 with ignore defense 25%. So I had it calculated out before, but let me just do it again. 1.8 divided by 0.75, which is a 2.4. Oh, sorry, it's a 1.85. So it's a 2.467, 2.47-ish attack, which is not all that special on its own, although it is only 30 MP instead of 45. But the big draw about this part, this ability, is that it decreases fire resistance by 30%. So subsequent attacks, especially, I mean, even if you have dual wield, the second one will be stronger by 30%, which is a really big deal. Now, it's not as good as, say, Orlando's skill, which is going to be 2.0, 50%, 50% with light damage. But this does have a little bit of a perk where the fire damage is built in. It's not gear dependent like Orlando, who would need to have Excalibur on, for instance. So this has some damage potential here. It's really could be powerful. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. He's a pretty straightforward character, minus all the charge up for the next turn type of stuff. His limit burst is pretty powerful, 3.1 with ignore defense 50%. That equates to a 6.2. Not as good as, say, Noctis's limit burst, but it does seem to be easier to use as far as the cost, and it decreases defense by 40% as well for 2 turns. And 40% defense decrease equates to about a 67% damage increase for the next 2 turns, so that's a pretty big deal too. You could, you know, activate this, and then you do your blazing combos for 2 turns, and you're getting a lot of damage. So overall, very good unit, very good damage potential, but you do need to be pretty good at farming TMs in order to really unlock his potential. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with, you know, really bad fist weapons, trying to get that passive boost and everything like that. So definitely go for him if you can have his TM and if you have, the ability to get Xiao's fist weapon farmed up. Otherwise, not very free to play friendly, but good character overall. All right, the next character on the banner is going to be one that a lot of people are interested in. First of all, the sprite is really awesome looking, and I might want to pull her just for that. But she's also got some really interesting abilities that are very different. And again, like I mentioned before, I hope I don't just whiff completely on her usefulness because she is so different from what I'm used to. Now, her only weapon selection is daggers, and that pretty much means that she's going to be relegated to, well, there's a current dagger in the event right now that's only 32 attack, I think, but it also gives you HP boost. That might be your best bet for a while because she's not super attack dependent, but you can also use kitchen knife, which comes with a nice stab ability, and eventually you'd want to farm up her venomous edge, which is going to be a great dagger. 85 attack and all this stuff like I already mentioned. So yeah, you kind of need to farm her TM to really unlock her full potential as well. As I mentioned, her HP is really low. All of these stats are pretty low actually, but I guess that's not really the point of this character. So she has a lot of these kinds of dances that debuff and have all these effects. Now this is really a good debuff on its face. It's a 45 decrease to defense and spirit to all enemies, and it increases the power of her normal attack, which is kind of a theme for her. So my guess is that the way to use her is going to be, doing these steps or dance moves, and then, eventually she gets really powered up. It can go 10 times, in fact, and you just keep powering her up, doing these debuffs and things like that. And then, every 10th turn or whatever, you can just unleash a whopping attack that's really, really powerful. I think that's how you would use her, but I'm not really sure. So it seems to me like she's kind of a character that's built on long-term fights, not like, 3-turn, 4-turn fights, but kind of like the dragged out boss fights and things like that. She does have Daunting Step, which is also an attack magic decrease, which is really good. This is kind of on par with Warrior of Light's upcoming AoE debuffs. The only problem with these is they don't mention it here, but it's only for 2 turns. So if it was 3 turns, that'd be like perfect, but it's only 2 turns. So you're gonna have to pretty much, keep doing these over and over and over. And then, like I said, you might want to sacrifice 1 turn to just really unleash a really powerful attack. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer that's only 2 turns instead of 3. Entrust is always useful. Mirage is good, especially considering that she is squishy. All these characters seem to come with Chakra, by the way, which is a monk type of ability where you can just, recover your own HP and MP. And that's going to be important for her because she does use a lot of MP. Especially with Invigorating Dance, she can recover the MP of all her allies except for herself. So she's able to recover MP for everyone else at a very high cost, but then she can recover herself here. But then the question is, well, okay, how do I fit in these debuff dances here then? So it's kind of like a decision that you have to make, like how do you want to use her, what is important for a certain fight. Pretty tricky, but maybe somebody could figure it out, and every boss fight will probably have a different ideal strategy anyway. She does have a nice passive here. Physical and magic damage against humans 75% and critical rate 40% increase. So really good man-eater plus type of skill here. Of course, she doesn't really have good damage abilities except for the charging up and doing a normal attack, but better than nothing. Auto refresh, again, she needs the MP. High Tide, increased limit burst gauge fill rate, and that's pretty good because her limit burst synergizes really well with somebody like Yun, because it does AoE decent damage, I guess, but then more importantly, it decreases fire resistance by at least 50%, depending on how you level it. So that's going to be really good synergy with Yun. I don't know how to pronounce it. I needed to stop saying it. She does have a way to also cure all status ailments. And this is kind of like, we're starting to get a lot of these now, like with Luca and upcoming Tele 6-star, but it's nice to have it here. Just makes her a little bit more slot efficient, although she can't heal and cure. Here she can inflict 2 random status ailments to all enemies. Now, people are saying that this might be kind of like a baby Noctis Fire Flask kind of thing. I would be curious to see how scary she is in Arena, especially considering the fact that she can now basically dodge 40% of physical damage, physical attacks. That's really, really high. So she might become a nightmare in Arena, we'll have to see. Let's see here. Okay, this is just a passive for herself. She has a little bit of fire resistance and then, you know, sleep, paralyze, confuse, and petrify resistance. Again, good to have. And then her Dance of Rebirth. This is kind of like her ultimate skill here. She revives all KO'd allies with 30% HP. Now, the usefulness of this is debatable. I'm sure that there's going to be situations where it just is a lifesaver. But for the most part, I think that this is going to be, it sounds better than it really is. I mean, people are going to be revived at 30% HP and presumably without buffs. So if the enemy or the boss attacks again, then they're going to just die right away again. So it's not a re-raise, it's just a revive kind of thing. So I don't think it's going to be as overpowered as people think it might be. But again, we'll have to see. Maybe it's all theory crafting right now. But yeah, very interesting character. I'd like to pull her just so I can experiment with her. That doesn't sound wrong at all. Alright guys, last but not least, we have Xiao, oldie but a goodie. Base 3-star goes up to 6 stars now, only in global. Again, her Trespasser reward, Kaiser Knuckles, is probably something you'd want to farm up, especially with all these new characters using fist weapons and future characters doing the same. So probably probably a character that you'd want to get a few copies of just for the TM at least. And I'm talking about Xiao, of course. Her stats are respectable for a 6-star, although nothing special. See right here, she has 131 attacks, so don't let that graphic fool you again. So she has the same problem that she always had, which is that she can only equip fist weapons, hats, clothes, and accessories. So she can't even equip light armor. So I was thinking maybe she could equip Crimson Slayer, the TM, but she can't even equip that. So she's very limited here. She has all the same things that she had before, but she does increase her chance to counter by 2x. And that's kind of important, I guess, because she also has a way to increase being targeted by 50%, and then she goes berserk, which is a 100% attack increase. Now, I'm not sure why you'd want her to be attacked more. She's not super tanky. She doesn't have really good tanking abilities or anything like that. So I'm not really sure what the thinking is here. I mean, I guess if this applies to counter attacks as well, the attack boost, there's some potential there, but I've used Snow, and I don't think that it's as good as people think it would be, all this counter punching and all that stuff, so I'd rather just keep her alive. I don't think I'd be using Unleash Chakra myself. Please correct me if there's something I'm not considering, some kind of strategy here. Anyway, the Rock Breaker ability is a really good AoE. This works out to like a 2.57-ish multiplier, which is not as good as Chizuru's, which works out to about 2.8, but definitely respectable here. So, I mean, she's kind of like a toned-down Chizuru in some ways, if you think about it. And then she has Mark of the Pugilist, which increases attack by 30% and increases blind resistance. So this is a passive that she gets at 6 stars, which is really nice because she has the 20% here and the 30% here. So 50% is definitely respectable. And I don't count this when I'm doing that. I forgot to mention that this is the reason why her attack stat looks so high in the graphic, because they're counting this, but really they shouldn't be. This is only if you decide not to put on any fist weapons or any weapon at all on her. And basically what that equates to is with a 131 attack at 6 stars, this is like equipping a 65, 66 attack fist weapon. Anything weaker, you want to just leave it off and just work with the passive instead. If you do get her TM, then you want to use her TM, or if you dual wield with her. So yeah, very strange mechanic, but This is actually pretty decent for free-to-play players because if you don't have all these good TMs, you can't farm up the fist weapons here, then unarmed you have pretty decent attack anyway, and we'll show you. I'll show you in just a second. Finally, not finally, two more things. She's able to skip the next turn and increase her attack defense, auto regen, auto refresh. So it's like this self-buffing monk type of stuff that I don't really get. The only reason I see using this is if she was your main kind of carry and you were starting out, you're mid to early game player, and she's doing most of the damage for you, and you don't care if everybody else dies, you just want her to stay alive and just dish out the damage and keep sustaining, then I can see this being useful. But otherwise I don't really see the appeal of that ability. You're going to be getting these buffs pretty much from like cheer and stuff anyway. And then Crushing Kick, which is her best physical damage single target ability, 1.8, and it decreases attack and defense by 40%. So the damage is not that great, but the debuff is actually really good. Even with Noctis's ability, I forgot what it's called, but his main attack ability, he does 30% debuff, but Xiao's doing 40%, and it's to attack and defense. So that equates to about a 67% increase in your party's damage after this debuff is applied to the enemy, which is really good. Like a 30% would be 43% extra damage, and then 50%, which only Elsa has, is a 100% attack increase, but hers only has defense down, doesn't have attack down. So this is a really good skill here, very good debuff, and I think that alone kind of makes her useful in some parties. So she has this for debuff, she has Rock Breaker for pretty much all other applications with her 2.57, 2.6-ish multiplier. So pretty decent character, pretty decent damage dealer, and could possibly slot into some free-to-play parties for sure. Her limit burst is very, very vanilla. It's just a 2.9x attack, which is a little bit stronger than Rock Breaker, but you're not going to be excited when your LB gauge is full with her. So anyway, that's my review on these characters. Let me just quickly show you the free-to-play Xiao that I have. So I kind of, built her up. I maxed her out at 5 stars in anticipation for the 6-star awakening, and then I maxed her out today just because she is a fun character to use, even if she's not the strongest. So this is what her stats look like with all attainable free-to-play gear. 415, which is, respectable. She's wearing literally no weapon. So this is 415 is with the passive. Tiger Mask, Black Belt Gi, these are things that every free-to-play player should, get the recipes for and farm up. And then, of course, Heroes Rings, which you should also farm up. And the abilities are just all 10% attack materia. So, yeah, I think she's a pretty decent character. I'll just show you real quick what it looks like. Alright, so I decided to do Chamber of Experience Advanced only because I personally am very familiar with the damage values and things like that on these enemies, so it's a little bit better for comparison purposes, I think. So let's start with the regular attack. Alright, so that was about 17k on normal attack. Let's do Crushing Kick, which is 1.8. Yeah, so about 20,000 there, 21,000 maybe. Now let's see her Rock Breaker, which is probably her best attack skill. Yeah. Very quick, good damage. Here's her Limit Burst. Yeah, you can see that she's countering a lot, which is pretty nice. I'm gonna actually do Unleash Chakra here and see how good the Berserk effect is. All right. And let's do another rock breaker. So yeah, pretty decent free to play character. Definitely fun to use. The countering is nice too. So yeah, I mean, if you don't have her already, if you're not filled out with Chizurus and things like that in your party, then she could possibly slot in for a while, especially with that debuff that she has. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed and good luck pulling.